Welcome to BVTV Network, coming to you from the UK studios of BizVision. I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher. Now, in this challenging and competitive world, there is one almost low-cost way that you can stand out and beat your competitors. I say low cost, which it is in some ways, but it demands commitment and consistency. I'm talking about the next step on from customer service, and that is customer experience. My guest today is one of the world's foremost experts in customer strategy and management. He's the author of this book, author of Leading the Customer Experience, How to Chart a Course and Deliver Outstanding Results. So please meet Brad Cleveland. Hello, Brad.
Hi, Malcolm. How are you?
Great to be with you. Excellent. Well, we've got sunshine in England, but I guess where you've got it all the time, have you?
Most of the time. San Diego does pretty well in that department.
Love
England. I've had the chance. So we're in Solana Beach. It's North County, San Diego. It's not too far from the southern part of Orange County, up in the LA area. So it's a nice spot. We enjoy it here.
And I believe you're not too far away from a company that you do a substantial amount of training for, don't you?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I have an office here. I've got an office in a couple of places, and LinkedIn Learning is not too far up the freeway, and they have this huge learning platform, and I've been doing courses for them on customer service and customer experience. So that's been convenient.
Yeah, Brad, I'm so looking forward to talking to you about my favorite subject. It is my favorite subject, customer experience. I told you before we went on air of the many years of work I've been doing in travel and hospitality, where customer experience is paramount. So I've been committed to it for years. Viewers and listeners, I'll be talking to Brad in 3 parts, which will also make up later 3 videos, and we've tentatively called it the Brad Experience. That was a sickly, isn't it, Brad? Number the three each have a title, with the first being positioning, the second embedding, and the third harvesting. So, Brad, before we get into that 3-part talk, can you briefly tell us who is Brad Cleveland and why your passion for customer experience?
Yeah, and I love how you asked that. We most of us in customer experience have that passion, right? It's so fascinating and has such a great impact. So I worked in various roles in my early career, and I became fascinated with all things customer service and customer experience. I think very early on, I was a technology installer in one job, and I remember getting scolded so badly one day by a boss for leaving fingerprints on a computer monitor. It was not a comfortable conversation. I just hadn't thought about it. They're like, "Hey, this reflects on us, and it's the experience we're leaving our customer with, and all this amazing technology, and it comes down to fingerprints on a monitor." And I something got a hold of me, and I started reading anything I could. Jan Carlson, CEO of Scandinavian Airways back then, wrote that classic book, Moments of Truth, and you know it from the travel sector. But he talked about coffee stains on airline trays, and like, hey, that's how customers are going to think we maintain the engines. So I loved it. Years later, I became founding partner in the International Customer Management Institute, ICMI. I served as CEO there for a dozen years. That opened doors for me to work with some incredible organizations around the world. And I was running my own organization. We had teams across the world, and was doing a few things right and making lots of mistakes and learning just a ton about customer experience and how it all has to work together. So today I do keynotes and consulting and do these online courses for LinkedIn Learning. And I'm still an advisor to ICMI, my old company, which has been a real privilege to continue to work with their team. So it's been an incredible journey, but I love to serve, and I love to see organizations serve and do what's best for customers. Magical things happen when they do.
And I believe totally in the fact that today, in such a competitive world with pricing, so much similar pricing, so much similar people, as we'll talk later, that customer expectation or customer experience is the competitive edge. Now,
That's right.
I'm asking Brett how we position our business to generate loyalty by meeting and exceeding customer expectations. Now, is this going beyond expected customer service to that holy grail of customer experience? What do you think, Brad?
Yes, absolutely. Customer experience goes beyond expectations of service. But I think, Malcolm, the message gets lost here in many organizations. And this is an opportunity for us. Our employees can hear the message. Yeah, customer experience is a lot more than what you do. And no one's going to say it that way, but it's a lot more than what you do in your area. It's everything. And how does that make anyone feel? No, the message is you have a huge role in this. And our customers are trying to tell us what they want. Our employees absolutely have a read on what customers want, unless we short circuit those processes. And that can happen so easily. I'll tell you a quick success story if you're up for it. I actually put this as one of the stories in the book, but I worked for a company in Toronto that designs business software, and they do a great job. They've always been committed to customer experience, but they had me come in a while back and do some training on customer expectations and quality standards and a few things. So I always like to spend time in the organization before I just stand in front of them and we do this workshop. I want to know what I'm talking about and what's going on with them specifically. So I spent some time the day before and talked to a number of employees. I spent some time in their support center, their technical support center, and their director and I were talking. She said, I've got this challenge. I've got one person that has a 25-minute average handling time. That's how long he spends with customers on average. And everybody else is, 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Is that a problem? Because we've run the math. And if we all did 25 minutes or 22, whatever it was, don't quote me on the number, but it's just north of 20. What's that going to do to us? We just destroy our budget. So I said, don't even tell me who it is. Let me just spend some time with your team. And sure enough, there was one person that had messages from customers printed out and tacked to the walls, his walls, great job, great service. And I wondered, is this the long handling time? And sure enough, it was. And so she had a conundrum. What do? You put a limit on that? She very wisely took the step of having several of her team members do a little project where they flow charted a support call. And she put them in a conference room with a large table and gave them index cards and had them write each step in this process on an index card. Left for a couple of hours, came back, and what she saw was the basics of a flow chart, how they handle these calls. And she said, "What'd you learn?" One person jumped in. He had a lower handling time. He said, "Well, I don't take some of the steps I could to make sure these are completely resolved. So I can see how I want to, tune that up a bit." The person with the long handling time, who's a part of this effort, jumped in and said, "Okay, there are some areas where I just go in and tell them about features in our software. They love it. I mean, it comes up, they need it, they love it. They don't know about all the capabilities we have." And I could see he just loved his work. He loved the company. He really loved standing behind the software. And they all agreed he was doing important. That was important, but was it beyond technical support? Maybe it was like one-off in-person training. They decided that was the case. And now I'm thinking that now they're getting somewhere. They've got that issue identified. I came back a few months later and everyone had a bounce in their step. Everyone's handling time, including his, was, and that doesn't matter. It's just a clock, but they were all down in a similar range. But they had created these cross-functional initiatives that he and others were a part of. So they spent part of their time developing YouTube videos on features, working with their knowledge management system on links on, hey, did you know about this? Did you know you can do that?
Yeah.
Product improvement efforts. It was fantastic. And he told me, look, now I can help all of our customers, not just the ones I talk to.
Yeah.
That's where customer service becomes customer experience.
Yeah.
Now, in a lot of organizations, Malcolm, he would have been the bad guy, slam a lid on it. We got to have standards for handling time and all these operational metrics that don't mean a hill of beans if they don't roll up to what we're really trying to do.
Yeah, excellent. And you know, in your book, you talk about the customer journey, which is in essence the work for the flow chart as well, isn't it? You know, that I would do, for example, with hotels. Hilton say that if you stay with them for a couple of nights, you'll be touched. Not physically, by the way, 120 times by them. So it's 120 times for it to go wrong, isn't it? You know, it's so, you know, identifying it. So it's excellent, the part on the customer journey there. Brad, thanks for that. And let me remind viewers and listeners of your website URL, website address. Now, viewers, obviously, you can see it on the screen behind me, but for listeners, let me spell that out for you. It's all the W's, Brad, B-R-A-D, Brad Cleveland, Cleveland, bradcleveland.com. That's easy for us to say over here in Northeast England, because Cleveland is a former county just a few miles away from me. bradcleveland.com. Now, your book is called Leading the Customer Experience, How to Chart a Course and Deliver Outstanding Results. And it's published by that outstanding publisher, Kogan Page. Brad, customer experience has to be a consistent delivery right through the company, doesn't it? So how should a leader go about embedding CX, or customer experience, within all the company's people, and so create an all touch points seamless experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. You just hit on a real fundamentally important part of getting customer experience right. And I found there are two big mistakes. They're hurdles, really. And if we can get over these hurdles, we'll be on a great track. One is building a vision and approach. The mistake part is building a vision and approach around our organization's goals and ambitions, our goals and ambitions. And we've got to make sure we're focused on the customer, and that's got to be true north for everyone. And I'll give you an example. I remember sitting in the back of a large meeting room as an organization launched its initiative, customer experience initiative, to a cross section of company employees. This was in person. It was just before COVID shut things down. And two presenters were part of this initiative. They walked through this, I think it was 75-minute overview, and they had a bunch of slides, and they used terms like an acronym, CX, NPS, CSAT. They discussed surveys and response rates. And I'm kind of looking around and getting a read on the room. And you know, there's some fidgeting. A few people are taking notes. They outline goals and metrics. So after the presentation, this is in the afternoon, we had a coffee tea break. And so I'm near the back of the room, and I'm first out the door. And I heard two people behind me heading for a coffee station. And one asked the other, you know, did you get all of that? And the other's like, man, not really, not much. We're up to our eyeballs at work. Just hope it doesn't add much. And I'm thinking, oh no, they just went through all of that, and they missed the chance to win hearts and loyalties.
Yeah.
What was missing? And I'm convinced it was vision. And can you picture? And there was an internal focus that really didn't grab the loyalties and the attention they could have. You know, can you picture Richard Branson or Emily Weiss or Elon Musk or any leader you admire launching a new initiative around net promoter score or customer satisfaction or digital transformation? That's all the hot topic right now, and it's important. Those things absolutely have a place, but we've got to focus on what matters. What are we doing to improve our customers' lives? You know, how are we making a dent in the world in a way that's really going to impact them? And that pulls people in. That's exciting. So that's one hurdle. Have a vision that's focused on customers. And the other hurdle is sub-optimization or doing really good work in functional areas, but it doesn't all roll up to an overall great customer experience. So, you know, the legal department does great work in putting the necessary language in to protect everyone, and compliance demands stringent verification. That helps. And customer service does a great job with those interactions, and marketing's pulling people in. All that's great in those silos, but we've got to pull it up and, like, what's the overall experience? And that goes back to that mapping you mentioned a moment ago. we need to involve everyone in understanding those processes. And you can use a journey map. You can do skits. I saw a company recently. They had their employees play out skits on what their customers run into, and it was the funniest thing. A lot of self-deprecation in these skits, but they walked away really having an understanding of, hey, what I do matters, and it matters in the overall picture. How does that work together?
Yeah, I've, as I said beforehand, been involved with the travel hospitality for a long time, and I often find that the customer experience has to be embedded in everybody, but they've got to know the part that they play. For example, I was once talking within the restaurant to the dishwasher, or you might call them bottle washers, whatever it may be, but well, saying, well, I can't see that. Well, it's nothing to do with me. I'm just the dishwasher. No, you are. You're part of the complete experience of that guest, aren't you?
Right.
If a dirty knife or a dirty fork. And I was training a lot of housemaids, again, bedchamber maids and everything like that. And they couldn't quite see the part that they played in the visitor, the guest experience. They thought their job was to clean the room. Now, that was a problem. I felt that was a management problem. It was from the top, not coming down correctly. What do you feel about that?
Absolutely right. And those are, the examples you mentioned are great. Those are the things we directly experience as customers, right? I mentioned a story, and pardon the example. It's not the most pleasant. I had a favorite restaurant, and there was human hair in a dish one time. I've never been back, and it's not to make a point or be unforgiving or anything. It's just I just don't want to. It just brings up that experience. It wasn't great. So everybody has a part in this, and yes, it's top management who has to make this inviting and really bring everybody into this process. The organizations that have the consistently best customer experiences have engaged employees. They almost turn the organization chart upside down, and those closest to the customers are the ones that everybody else knows they're serving. You're either serving a customer or you're supporting someone who does. That's what our organization looks like. They embed that in their culture, and they celebrate. They celebrate those contributions, and it's an overused word, but it's an important one. You use whatever term you want. They empower every individual to make decisions in very real ways, economically, decision wise, make the decisions you need to create that experience.
And I always say to people, whether I'm dealing with engineering or manufacturing, I said, sometimes look to hospitality people, because they can give you a lead. Marriott Hotels, for example, world biggest, they had a brilliant strapline, spirit to serve. And it doesn't matter where you went in the hotel. If you went into the toilet and somebody's cleaning the door handle, they would talk to you. They would anticipate if you needed anything. So they felt it was their job as well to add to that customer experience.
Yeah.
And I one final story, Brad. I know it's my own stories. I apologize, but
great.
There's a small bed and breakfast guest house in London called the Dorchester. Who's a pretty big posh hotel, yeah. And we were filming with the operations director. I had a BBC crew with me, and we were saying, well, who've you got? She said, well, we've got 125 different nationalities or cultures work in that hotel. So, well, how do you deliver all in one precise way for the guest? And, these are top guests playing top work. And she says, quite simply, we teach every single one of them that if a guest has to ask, we've failed. So we teach the word anticipation. And that's always dwelt with me there, because any business, using this book in particular, any business, though, can actually start to have a great customer experience culture. Now, Brad, if a customer experience culture is to be maintained and even improved upon, surely it's vital to have a culture of gathering or harvesting, measuring and acting upon feedback, both good and bad. Do you agree? And how can it be done efficiently, economically, and effectively?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and especially in an era where customer surveys are just part of the answer, and they're a critical part of the answer, but they're just part of the answer. And a lot of organizations will have voice of the customer initiatives that become more insular and built around surveys. We need everybody to listen. We need everybody's perspective. So there's a few things that come to mind when we're really doing our part in listening and I like that word, harvesting, acting upon feedback. One is we've got to cast a wide net. So surveys are a part of it, but customer service touch points, what's happening there, social media, that can be loud and raucous, and you have to work through some of the clutter and bad manners, but are there messages there that we need to be hearing and learning from? Operational data, what's that telling us? Wait times and quality standards and that sort of thing. And just talking to customers, those one-off conversations may not be statistically significant to someone in the survey world, but we could learn a ton. And every employee, any employee that's interacting with customers has that opportunity. So that's one, cast a wide net and brainstorm that with your team. Just put it on a board. What are all the ways, all the channels, all the opportunities for us to listen? You'll come up with, a couple of dozen right off the bat. Funnel them, then have an owner. You don't want that data going into different parts of the organization. We need it to go into a central repository. So if you've got some system tools for that, terrific. If you don't, start investigating, but don't wait for perfection. Bring them, even if there's some manual parts, manual steps, bring all of that data into a central repository. Have a way of tagging it. Is it a quality issue? Is it a price issue? What's come up with tags that are detailed enough that they give you some insight, but not so detailed that they just become cumbersome and you start to lose visibility. So tag, prioritize, and act on it. Prioritize, act on those things that have the most impact or that come up the most often. And have a feedback loop. So you're telling your employees, hey, thank you. Here's how we're using the insight that you're feeding to us. Now, how do you get that information, that insight from an employee to that central repository? There are 101 ways, low tech, high tech. Come up with something that works. Don't wait for perfection. One organization just developed a little module in an app they use for internal purposes. That lets you quickly open it, quickly type a message, and boom, you send it away. And it goes into, and this can be anyone. It can be a marketing manager who's at Jazz in the Park on a Saturday, and she happens to sit next to someone who's, hey, I see the logo on your bag. I love working. I love being a customer of you guys. And there's a little bit of feedback. She learns something. Most of the time it's lost. Pulls out her little app, boom. So creating a culture where everybody's a part of that listening effort, and then letting them know what we're doing with it, acting on it and letting them know. That's exciting. Now we all feel like we're a part of something.
Yeah, I think that bit that you just hit there at the end there, the feedback to everybody is important. Often management is guilty of keeping, I don't know, should we say TripAdvisor reports or whatever it may be to themselves and not cascading down, both the good and the bad, by the way. I always tell people as well, smaller businesses, I say, start looking at it from the customer's shoes or viewpoint. So staple yourself to an order.
There's no bad guy in customer experience that I've found. I get a chance to go into a lot of organizations. I rarely go in and we're trying to not share feedback. We're trying to make this insular and not involved, but I never run into that. But customer experience has almost become a victim of its own success. Everyone thinks they're doing it. It's become professionalized and standards and certifications and all that's great. Don't get me wrong. But if it becomes a team that hey, we're the customer experience team, and because we have all this knowledge and know-how, that's a danger, because everybody's got to be a part of that effort. So invite everyone into the process. Customer experience should be enabling, not something that's insular and an initiative of its own, so to speak.
Well, sadly, I must leave Santiago soon, but I hope my customer experience on the flight back via Zoom will be fine. When you are faced with similar competitors offering similar products or services to similar customers in similar markets, the way to stand out and differentiate is through delivering an exemplary customer experience. I trust my meet with Brad Cleveland, author of this book, Leading the Customer Experience, has shown you both the opportunity and the way. Thanks, Brad, for a great interview.
You're welcome, Malcolm. Thanks for the great work you're doing. Appreciate it.